The corridors of Varelian Academy were too clean to feel alive. The walls hummed with sterilized air, polished glass reflecting the pale glow of Kithera 9's green atmosphere. Everything here, from the synthetic gravity plates to the perfumed climate control, was designed to suppress chaos. Lyra Kane walked in silence through that perfection. Her boots made no sound. The academy mats absorbed even defiance. Aliens parted as she passed, not out of respect but instinct, the kind that told prey when a predator was near. Her uniform, plain gray, carried the crimson insignia of Earth. The color itself was an insult here. Instructors pretended not to notice the distance others kept from her. The Galactic Confederation's charter promised equality among species, but fear had deeper roots than law. Humanity, newly admitted, came from a planet classified as a Category 5 Deathworld, a world where everything evolved to kill and survive. And Lyra, at 17, was its representative in this place of delicate glass. The first lecture of the day was Xenopsychological Harmony. 100 cadets of 15 species sat in circular tiers while Professor Vethra droned on about collective empathy in her liquid tone. Lyra took notes without looking up. She didn't need the lesson. She lived its hypocrisy daily. Halfway through the session, a pebble struck her desk. A whisper followed. "Hey, Deathworlder, how's extinction therapy going?" Lyra didn't look. The voice belonged to Javran, a scaled youth from the Tivrax system, all swagger and no bite. His kind loved testing boundaries. "Quiet," Professor Vethra hissed without turning. The class stilled. The moment passed. But Lyra knew this was the beginning of another long day of tests disguised as jokes. After class, she remained seated until the others left. Calmness wasn't submission. It was control. Her mother had taught her that on the day the transport ships took her from Earth. "The galaxy will call you dangerous," she'd said, fastening the gray uniform. "Prove them right. Only when they leave you no choice." Outside the lecture dome, the artificial sunlight shimmered through the hex-glass roof. Patrol drones floated overhead, scanning student IDs. Lyra adjusted her satchel and made for Hall 7, the maintenance wing where cadets performed duty rotations. Waiting at the entrance stood Varek Thol, the Academy's chief security officer. He towered over the students, scales polished like obsidian armor. His slit pupils tracked Lyra's every move. "You're late," he said, voice grinding like metal on stone. "It's Aero 900, she replied evenly, checking the wall chrono. "You were expected at Aero 855. Humans struggle with precision, it seems." She didn't respond. He enjoyed baiting her. Every conversation was a trap, and she refused to give him satisfaction. Inside the hall, mechanical arms cleaned corridors while drones buzzed between control panels. Varek followed her, his claws clicking against the floor. "Cadet Kane, you will perform sanitation recalibration on Bay 12. "That's not standard for my rank." He leaned close enough that she smelled the acrid tang of his breath. "Do you question orders?" "No, sir." "Good, then work." Lyra moved toward the bay. It was menial labor, something normally assigned to probationary cadets. She could have filed a report, but reports went nowhere. Humanity's embassy already had a backlog of complaints buried under diplomacy. For 2 hours, she worked in silence, reprogramming drone algorithms, replacing cracked lenses, scrubbing coolant residue from the floor. Every motion was precise, economical. Around her, alien cadets whispered. She felt their eyes, curious, afraid, sometimes amused. One, a feathered Avrani girl, finally spoke. "Do you ever get angry?" Lyra straightened. "Would it matter if I did?" The girl hesitated, then shook her head and left. By mid-shift, sweat darkened Lyra's collar. The recycled air carried a faint ozone tang, the Academy's favorite sterilizer. She closed the maintenance panel, sealing it with a magnetic hiss. Varek stood nearby, arms crossed. "Finished, human?" "Yes, sir." He tapped a talon against the metal floor. "And yet, your report lacks a timestamp." "I'll add it." He moved closer. "You think compliance hides what you are. It doesn't. I've seen your kind before. Fragile things pretending at discipline." She looked up at him then, calm as a frozen lake. Fragile things don't outlive Deathworlds. The muscles along his jaw flexed. The hall went quiet. Even the drones seemed to hesitate mid-flight. "You'll address me properly, cadet," he said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "I did." Something in her tone, respectful, factual, utterly unafraid, snapped whatever thin restraint he had. In one motion, his clawed hand lashed out. The slap echoed down the corridor like a gunshot. Lyra staggered half a step, her cheeks stinging. Every instinct screamed respond, but she stood still. The Academy's observation sensors were watching. She could almost hear the drones recalibrating their lenses to zoom in. Varek's voice came low, almost satisfied. "Consider that a lesson in obedience." She said nothing. The silence stretched. Her vision pulsed at the edges, black creeping inward. Inside her neural core, something old and mechanical stirred. A warning flickered across her internal HUD. Neural reflex override. Restraint. Threshold breached. Her pulse slowed. The pain vanished, replaced by an eerie calm. The world sharpened, every detail etched in impossible clarity. She could see Varek's heartbeat ripple along his throat, smell the faint heat of the energy weapon on his hip, sense the vibration of air through the vents. Varek blinked. "What?" Her eyes, once gray, deepened to ink. A drone above emitted a sharp tone. "Alert human biological anomaly detected. Neural override activation level 4. Around them, cadets froze. The feathered Avrani girl dropped her datapad, feathers trembling. Varek's hand drifted toward his baton. Lyra didn't move. She merely breathed, steady, controlled. Inside, the protocol whispered, "Threat detected. Respond." Her voice came quiet, even, but layered, like a second voice beneath her own. "You shouldn't have done that." The lights flickered, reacting to the sudden spike in electromagnetic discharge. Panels along the walls hummed with residual energy. Varek took a step back. "Stand down, cadet." Her gaze locked onto his. "I am standing down." The words carried weight, a promise, not defiance. Then the black receded, her pupils returning to gray. The hum subsided. For a long moment, no one breathed. Finally, she turned away. "Permission to return to quarters, sir?" Varek hesitated, his pride clashing with something colder. Fear. He gave a stiff nod. Lyra walked past him without another word. Behind her, whispers rose like the hiss of wind through metal, the sound of rumors being born. She reached the lift alone. When the doors closed, her reflection stared back. Pale skin, gray eyes again, a faint red mark on her cheek. She lifted a hand to it and smiled, small and bitter. In the mirrored panel for a heartbeat, her reflection blinked late, half a second off. The neural systems inside her flickered again, recalibrating. Deep in her mind, a diagnostic whisper echoed. Human control confirmed. Protocol contained, for now. The lift ascended toward the residential decks. The hum of the Academy faded beneath her. Outside, the storms of Kithera 9 rolled like green fire across the clouds. Lyra closed her eyes. The slap still burned, but not from pain. It was the burn of awakening, of something inside her that the galaxy wasn't ready to see, and she knew this was only the beginning. The alarm blared before dawn. Not the usual class summons, but the sharp pulse of an internal breach alert. Every cadet in the lower dorms bolted upright as the corridor lights turned red. Lyra Kane was already awake. She hadn't slept. Her neural implant had been humming since the slap, running silent diagnostics she hadn't requested. When the alarm went off, she knew instinctively it was because of her. She rose from her bunk, pulled on her uniform, and faced the mirror. Her reflection looked composed, but she could feel the static beneath her skin. A part of her she'd worked her whole life to bury had stirred. The door hissed open before she reached it. 2 Varnathi guards stood outside, armored and armed. "Cadet Kane!" one barked, voice filtered through a rebreather. "You are to report to Security Hall immediately." Lyra met his gaze. "Am I under arrest?" "Directive evaluation," the second one said, avoiding her eyes. "Non-compliance will be recorded as aggression." She followed them through empty corridors. Drones floated above, scanning her vitals. The air was thick with ozone and unease. As they neared the hall, more guards appeared. She counted 6 total. Overkill for a cadet, unless they were expecting a monster. The security hall doors parted with a hiss. Inside, Varric Thal waited. His scales gleamed under the cold lights. The slap mark on her cheek had faded, but he looked at it as if it were still fresh. "Human," he began, pacing before her. "You've triggered an automated defense protocol not listed in your academy registration. Explain." She kept her voice even. "It's a genetic reflex implant. Earth-born citizens from high-risk zones have them. It's defensive." "Defensive?" His jaw flexed. "You call this—" He pointed toward the surveillance screen. "Defensive?" The footage played, Varric's slap, the flickering lights, her black eyes. The air itself seemed to shudder in the recording. Lyra didn't look away. "I didn't attack you," he stopped pacing. "You frightened the entire academy. Then maybe they should stop hitting me." Gasps came from the observation deck above. A row of instructors watched through reinforced glass. Even from here, Lyra could feel their collective fear. Varric's voice lowered. "You think courage will protect you, Deathworlder? You think your little outburst means power?" "No," she said. "It means control." I stopped it. He leaned in close, his breath warm and sharp. "Next time you won't." Lyra didn't answer. She had nothing to prove to him. He motioned to the guards. "Restrain her." The nearest stepped forward with magnetic cuffs. Lyra's hands remained still, palms open. But the air thickened around her, the same pulse she'd felt before returning with force. Neural override threshold, 97%. She tried to breathe it down. Not now. The guard's cuff clamped on her wrist, and a surge of current jolted through her body. Pain seared down her arm, white-hot. Her instincts reacted faster than thought. The world slowed. The hum of electricity broke into separate tones she could count. The guard's movement looked sluggish, almost gentle. Her reflex system mapped everything. The guard's stance, Varric's posture, the nearest vent. Lyra pivoted. In one fluid motion, she twisted the guard's wrist, disengaged the cuff, and stepped backward. The motion was smooth, efficient, and terrifyingly precise. Another guard lunged. She sidestepped, tapped a pressure node at his neck, and he collapsed instantly. Not dead, just unconscious. "Stop." Varric roared, reaching for his shock baton. She turned her head, voice calm but edged with something primal. "Don't." The baton ignited. Blue arcs crackled in the air. Lyra sighed. "I said don't," he swung. She caught his wrist mid-strike. The baton discharged harmlessly into the air as she wrenched it from his grip and flicked it across the room. It embedded itself into a metal console with a deafening clang. For a moment, no one moved. Lyra took a single step forward. "You wanted proof that humans are dangerous," she said softly. "Now you have it." Varric stumbled back, his throat working as he searched for words. "You're a weapon," she shook her head. "No, I'm the reason we survived long enough to build one." Behind her, the remaining guards hesitated. Their scanners were flashing red, biometric readings off the charts. Neural override level 5, lethal suppression active. She exhaled, forcing her heart rate down. The interface flickered, dimming. Slowly, the black drained from her eyes. She turned her gaze toward the observation window. Dozens of faces stared down in silence, some horrified, some fascinated. One of the instructors, a translucent-bodied Calirian, whispered something into a communicator. Lyra spoke without raising her voice. "You're recording this, aren't you?" No one answered. She smiled faintly. "Good, let them see." Her pulse stabilized. The hum inside her quieted. The reflex system retreated to dormancy, leaving only exhaustion behind. Varric sank onto a chair, breathing hard. His pride was bleeding more than his arm. "You could have killed us all." "Yes," she said. "But I didn't." He glared at her. "Why?" "Because I'm not what you think I am." He looked away, shame creeping into the spaces his anger used to fill. The doors hissed open behind her. The headmaster entered, a tall being with skin like mirrored silver. His voice resonated through the hall. "That will be enough." Lyra turned, straightening automatically. "Cadet Kane," he said. You will remain confined to quarters pending Confederation review. You've caused considerable alarm. Yes, sir, she replied quietly. Varric opened his mouth to protest, but the headmaster silenced him with a glance. And you, Officer Thole, will submit a full report regarding your conduct. The Council will determine disciplinary measures. For both of you. The reptilian guard stiffened. You can't be serious. I am. The headmaster's tone cut like steel. The footage shows provocation. This academy does not tolerate abuse, no matter the species involved. Lyra felt the tension drain from her shoulders. It wasn't victory. It was survival. She was escorted back to her quarters by two silent droids. The hallway lights dimmed to night mode, their glow painting the walls in subdued gold. Inside, she sat on the edge of her bed and finally let her breathing steady. The adrenaline faded, leaving her limbs heavy. Her cheeks still tingled where Varric's slap had landed hours ago. She reached for the embedded console on her desk and opened the local news feed. It was already spreading. Human cadet triggers forbidden combat protocol at Galactic Academy. The headline pulsed in alien script. Below it, comments scrolled. Fear, outrage, fascination. She closed the feed. The galaxy would dissect her now, pixel by pixel. The room lights flickered briefly. Her neural interface activated again. A diagnostic whisper brushed her thoughts. Override complete. Emotional control 98%. Instinct. Restrained. Lyra looked toward the small viewport above her bed. Beyond it, Kythera 9 glowed under its perpetual storms. Lightning pulsed like veins through the clouds. She murmured to herself, "They think we're monsters because we survived what they couldn't." Her reflection in the glass showed calm eyes again. Gray, human. But deep down, she could still feel that pulse, that dark hum waiting in silence. For the first time, she wondered if control would always come at a cost. One day, maybe too high to pay. The door sensor blinked. A faint metallic voice spoke from outside. "Cadet Kane, you have been summoned. The Confederation Council demands your appearance within 12 hours. She stared at the door. So soon, the hum returned, soft and patient, beneath her heartbeat. Lyra exhaled and whispered, "Then let them see who we really are." Outside, thunder rolled across the moon. The transport chamber hummed like a living thing, its walls alive with faint blue veins of energy. Lyra stood in the center, wrists magnetically bound, the hum of the containment field vibrating through her bones. Outside the glass, alien officers spoke in low-clipped tones, never once meeting her eyes. Through the viewport, she could see the Galactic Council station, Eidolon Prime, a floating fortress of light wrapped in layers of mirrored defense grids. It drifted above a white dwarf star, glimmering like a judgment throne. Every human who'd stood trial there before her had faced suspicion. Never trust. The chamber hissed open. "Cadet Lyra Kane," a mechanical voice said, "you will proceed to Council Chamber 7. She walked forward, head high. The corridor stretched endlessly, flanked by soldiers from half a dozen species. The air smelled sterile, like disinfectant and fear. Every boot step echoed like a verdict waiting to be spoken. As she entered the vast circular chamber, her reflection multiplied across walls of living glass. The council members floated in suspended seats above her, 20 beings representing the major civilizations of the Confederation. Each form more alien than the next, crystalline organisms pulsing with light, scaled colossi breathing faint heat, liquid-bodied envoys rippling with emotion. At the center hovered High Arbiter Kelren, his form a glowing sphere of interwoven filaments. "Cadet Kane of Earth," his voice resonated, not through sound but through thought. "You stand accused of activating an unregistered neural combat protocol within Confederation territory. The footage has been verified." Lyra lifted her chin. "Yes, sir. It was involuntary." "Involuntary?" Kelren's light pulsed. "Explain." Lyra took a breath. "The implant was installed during Earth's post-cataclysmic reconstruction. It's meant to keep us alive when the environment or others try to kill us. It's not a weapon. It's a reflex. A survival tool." Murmurs rippled across the chamber. One counselor, a gelatinous being from Narration, vibrated in disapproval. Survival tools that can neutralize armed officers are weapons. Lyra met his translucent gaze. Then so is your venom, counselor. You evolved it to live. We evolved this to survive. The room quieted. Even the drones recording the proceedings seemed to pause. Kelren's tone softened, but only slightly. You understand the gravity of your situation. Your display endangered personnel and destabilized the Academy's interspecies order. Humanity's membership in this alliance is fragile. Yes, she said. I understand. Then why restrain yourself? The question wasn't accusation. It was curiosity, cold and clinical. The footage shows you capable of lethal force. You could have ended the confrontation instantly. Lyra hesitated, searching for words that would make sense to beings who'd never known what it meant to fight for air, to bleed in gravity that tried to kill you. Because control, she said finally, is the only thing that makes us more than our instincts. You call us Deathworlders? Fine. But on Earth, everything kills. We survived not because we're violent, but because we learned when not to be. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The silence was heavier than any accusation. Then another voice, deep, rough, familiar, broke it. Varric Thol stepped from the side gallery. He wore a fresh uniform, his arm bandaged, eyes downcast. The council murmured as he approached the podium. I have a statement, he said. Kelren's filaments pulsed. Proceed, Officer Thol. Varric's claws clicked against the platform. The human did not attack me. She could have, but didn't. I provoked her, struck her first. I believed fear was the only way to keep her kind contained. Whispers flared. Lyra turned slightly, eyes narrowing. He didn't look at her. Varric continued, voice quieter now. She stopped herself. That restraint is not weakness. It is discipline. I misjudged. Kelren's light flickered once, dimming in contemplation. You admit misconduct? Yes, Varric said, bowing his head. And ignorance. The Arbiter's tone was unreadable. Noted. Lyra felt something shift in the room. The council's scrutiny lessened, curiosity replacing hostility. A crystalline counselor spoke next, her voice chiming like glass. Perhaps the fault lies not in the human's nature, but in our perception. Another hissed disapproval. Perception doesn't alter risk. Kelren raised a luminous tendril. Enough, he turned to Lyra. Your defense has been heard. The council will deliberate. A low chime followed. The lights dimmed, the counselors' seats rotating inward. Voices blurred together, alien frequencies merging into indecipherable sound. Lyra stood alone in the silence, her reflection staring back from the polished floor. Her heart thudded once, twice. She forced her breathing to slow. She thought of Earth, of her mother's last words on the spaceport. You'll never win their trust, Lyra, so don't try. Earn their respect instead. Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, the seats rotated outward again. Kelren's light brightened. The council has reached consensus, he said. Cadet Lyra Kane, the activation of your neural system is judged a defensive reflex, not an act of aggression. You will not face punitive charges. A faint exhale rippled through the chamber. Relief, disbelief, maybe both. However, Kelren continued, for the stability of our interspecies institutions, you are hereby expelled from Lyra Academy. Humanity will receive formal notice. You will return to Earth immediately. The words landed softly, yet heavy as iron. Expelled, vindicated, but branded dangerous. Lyra nodded once. Understood. Kelren's glow dimmed in acknowledgement. For what it's worth, Cadet, your restraint honors your species more than your strength ever could. The guards approached. The magnetic cuffs clicked shut again, though gentler this time. Varric watched silently as she was led out. When she passed him, he whispered, You have my respect, human. She paused, meeting his eyes. Keep it. Just make sure the next one like me doesn't need to earn it with blood. Then she walked on. The transport shuttle's engines roared to life. Through the viewport, Eidolon Prime receded into a halo of light. Lyra sat strapped into her seat, the hum of departure filling her ears. Around her, the escort soldiers avoided eye contact. She didn't mind. Silence was better than pity. Outside, the stars streaked into motion. The journey home had begun. She leaned her head against the cold bulkhead, eyes half closed. The neural implant whispered softly at the edge of thought, diagnostic murmurs fading into background noise. System stable. Réflexe dormant. Control. Intact. A faint smile touched her lips. For the first time since the slap, she felt something close to peace. Hours later, when the stars slowed and Earth's blue curve appeared beneath the viewport, Lyra unstrapped herself and moved closer. The planet looked small, bruised but shining, a survivor like her. She whispered to the glass, "They'll never understand us." Then she added, softer, "That's fine. They don't have to." Behind her, a faint chime came from the comms panel, a transmission routed through secure human channels. A man's voice, calm and deliberate. "Cadet Kane, this is Ambassador Rains. The Council's verdict reached us. You've done more for our image than a fleet of diplomats could in a decade." She blinked. "By getting expelled? By proving we can be dangerous and merciful." Lyra said nothing. The ambassador's tone warmed. "Rest, Lyra. You've reminded them what humanity really is. And maybe reminded us, too." The channel closed. She sat back, watching clouds form over the Atlantic far below. A quiet pride rose inside her. Not the loud, defiant kind the galaxy feared, but something older. The kind that comes from surviving and still choosing to be human. The stars outside flared one last time as the shuttle descended. Lyra whispered into the hum, "We aren't monsters, but we remember how to be when the galaxy forgets why it shouldn't." And the sky, burning with dawnlight, welcomed her home.